get connected. Except like with the tutor in Forbidden City, and then Johnston, and of course the wet nurse and her nipple to suck on. Something it's a comfort physically to him. And she also treat him like a human being. And then the wife, very briefly, and then Johnston, and then the governor in the prison. But for a lifetime, there's so few.
Puyi was Emperor of Manchukuo for 11 years, but his existence was, in his own words, a kind of living death. He was a powerless instrument of the Japanese, an object of hatred and derision. He gave bogus respectability to a brutal regime which exploited the local Manchu people and used terror tactics to enforce its rule. In 1937, the Japanese launched a full-scale war against China. It was an assault of merciless ferocity, and at Nanking, 250,000 unarmed civilians were cold-bloodedly slaughtered. Puyi issued endless communiques praising the Japanese war effort, first against China, then against Britain and America as the Second World War began. 2 days after Hiroshima, the Russians moved into Manchuria and captured Puyi as he tried to make his escape. He was taken to a Soviet detention center and then to the Tokyo war crimes trial, where he spent 10 days in the witness box.
After I got into Manchuria, I lost my personal freedom, my physical freedom. Had I resisted against this oppression, I would never be here to testify today.
Did you not repeatedly state to them that you hoped for a Japanese victory in the Pacific War?
我到了满洲以后的情形，跟你说，完全我的嘴跟我的手完全不是我的，一切的事情完全是日本的一种的强制之下做。
As I had repeatedly told you, that after I arrived at Manchuria, I had lost my hands and arms, and also my mouth was stopped.
After the trial, Puyi was taken back to the Soviet Union. In 1950, a year after the founding of the People's Republic, he was returned to China and taken to a special prison at Fushun. The man mainly responsible for Puyi's re-education there was Jin Yuan, the prison governor.
把皇帝改造成为一个公民，这一类历史上大概是也不多，是吧？那么这个溥仪的改造过程呢，也是这样子。开始从苏联来的时候啊，他一听说落到中国共产党的监狱里面，他肯定是将来要死路一条，判处死刑。所以这个来到中国初期，一直是怕死，怕中国政府要杀头。大概是这个情况呢，有2年多，这个时间，我们呢也不相信改造它，这个溥仪能够改造好，那这不是一类历史上的奇迹吗？这样子一个饭来张口、衣来伸手的这么一个皇帝，怎么能改造好？我们也不相信。
This prison is not what we are used to think and to know in the West, the place of the brainwashing. If you think that Puyi had his butler in prison for the first 5 years of his prison, because the Chinese thought that he couldn't, and it would have been too tough for him. So he would have refused this change. So there is a big conflict. There's a kind of dialectic. The governor says you have to change. Puyi thinks a man cannot change. He thinks he will spend all his life in prison.
You forgot my tooth powder.
Oh, yes, sir.
Move it. 981. Collect your things.
In the film, the prison governor is played by China's Deputy Minister of Culture and one of the country's leading actors, Ying Roshen.
Stop. Your leases are undone. Do them up.
The governor, of course, is a committed communist who was doing things, first of all, because it was part of the cause, and also because he was ordered to do so. But I think there's more to it than that. Let's say that there are two kinds of communism, especially where prisons are concerned. There is the punitive kind, the punitive-minded communist who thinks, well, because these are war criminals, because they have done this and that bad thing to the people, so they are to be punished, and I'm here to punish them. And you can get real sadists out of people like that. And then there's the other kind, who are truly, finally convinced themselves that the end of the revolution was not to destroy, but to rebuild. That it is possible to rejuvenate, to restore a person's true dignity, to make him feel that there's a future for him as an equal, and to feel true gratification when that is achieved. Puyi was inordinately proud of himself when he actually could dig a hole and grow a flower. I think that must have affected him much more than we can imagine. For someone who's never done a bit of work all his life, I think it is to restore the balance of one's mind, to put everything in its true perspective. Whereas before this, I think everything in Puyi's mentality was distorted.
最后就想问你们呢，你们在那个抚顺管理所的时候，你们读的书有没有读毛选？
什么？
毛泽东的那个毛选？
当然呢，毛选关于那个马克思主义学说，我都学习这个。
看这样的东西有帮助吗？就是帮助你们。
在当时，但是没法子那么念，并没有什么想要学，非学不可。是当时那种是等于学校的课本似的。
当学校的课本这样的话，你觉得在毛选里头哪一篇文章比较有帮助，比较有意思？
不，那是后来慢慢才认识的。
当时就不。
当时无所谓，就是怎么讲呢？跟唱戏似的那样。
啊，是吗？
Perhaps you think we are here to teach men to lie in a new way? Why did you sign every accusation made against you? I didn't stop you from killing yourself to see you like this. Someone who signs anything to please his enemies, to please me. You knew about a lot of things in Manchukuo, even the secret agreements. But you couldn't possibly have known about the Japanese biological warfare experiments in Harbin, could you? So why did you sign these papers?
I was responsible for everything.
You are responsible for what you do. All your life, you thought you were better than everyone else. Now you think you are the worst of all.
Why can you not leave me alone? You saved my life to make me a puppet in your own play. You saved me because I am useful to you.
Is that so terrible? To be useful?
What is interesting is when in 1959, after 9 years of prison, Puyi has the pardon. We don't know if he has changed or not. Even the governor of the prison doesn't know it. Then we follow a bit Puyi outside. He becomes a gardener, he's in the botanic garden. Is he changed? Yes, he's changed. You know why he's changed? Because for the first time in his life, this man is free. He's free to go in the street, he's free to ride a bicycle, he's free to get to a bus, to take a bus, to go in the middle with other people.
After he left prison, Puyi worked in the Peking Botanical Gardens, and then as a literary and historical worker for the Historical Materials Commission of the National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference. He was presented as a symbol of the transformations wrought by the new China, but some Western observers claimed that he was now merely a mouthpiece for propaganda. He lived long enough to witness the upheaval of the Cultural Revolution, during which his former prison governor was himself imprisoned.
他这个文化大革命的时候，全国一样打内战，所以我的管理所的所长，所以当年接受这个群众的批判。我的罪名呢，所谓的罪名呢，为皇帝数倍立传，一个是帮助他写了我的前半生，这是一个，再一个呢就是对皇帝这样子罪恶滔天的这样子人，是这个过于实行革命的引导主义。
Isn't there a slight risk that this interpretation of Puyi's life might be just a little bit of a fairy tale, that things come out so well for him and everybody's redeemed through re-education? Isn't the risk of it being a fairy tale ending?
I think Puyi is a bit Peter Pan. I mean, he's somebody who doesn't want to grow up, somebody who has a big problem to become an adult. And he will be an adult, a grow-up, only when he will be an old man. No, I hope this risk is not there, just because the story of Puyi is a very exceptional story. The prison where Puyi was a very special prison. And also what I think is important is the idea that Chinese justice has about, for example, the war criminal. What was important was not so much the punishment, but was important the re-education. This is in general in Chinese prison, even today, even if they are in prison sometimes for wrong reasons, or reasons that to us would look wrong. The idea of the Chinese justice is not purely punish these people, these eventual criminals, but to try to make them understand. And this is, I think, true, is not propaganda. Action!